Hello again, everybody. As always, I am Alex or RCG Blade, but today I am joined by a very special guest. You may know him from the Amnesia modding community, his games Pyramus and Nebraska, and most recently the indie horror co op hit game Nuclear Nightmare. This is Benjamin, head developer of those games and the creator of BG Productions. Benjamin, thank you very much for joining me today. I know you've got an incredibly busy schedule.
Yeah, thanks. Thanks for doing this. I'm excited to go through some of the questions and yeah.
All right, first and foremost, point blank, how have you been doing lately?
Oh, I've been working very hard. I've barely been sleeping. But it's been a great ride. It's been a wild ride. So I can't say nothing but great. I just wish I had a little bit more sleep as well.
Yeah, I wish there was more time in the day. I mean, you've definitely been dropping like a lot of updates and stuff, so your hard work has definitely been noticed. So, what got you into horror in the first place?
Well, I was always into horror ever since a small kid. I mean, I grew up watching, Alien and Predator and The Thing and all the other horror movies out there. So it's always been just, massive interest for me. I never was really into anything but horror, specifically when it came to, what kind of movies I liked or what kind of games I liked. As a kid, when I was about, eight 8 years old, 7 years old, I would record my own little home movies, and I would basically make these kind of horror movies. I mean, obviously, I was a kid, and it was
Yeah,
just with a home camera. But yeah, then when I was about 9 years old, I progressed to making games where because it was kind of like I had all the props or other things I needed to make my movies right at my fingertips, and they could be taken serious. Yeah, other than just some kid making stuff with the home camera. So that's why it originally got me into games and all programming, then rather specifically horror games. And yeah, and ever since I was about 9 years old, I've been making them up until this point now.
that is very impressive to hear. Apart from the game development stuff, sounds a lot like my childhood. I also grew up, loving horror, Alien, Predator, all that stuff. I remember I got Alien versus Predator when I was 5 for my 5th birthday, so that was wild. I had a very interesting aunt in my life, but so okay, going off what you said, it sounds like horror is your favorite genre. Would you agree with that?
Oh yeah, definitely,
Okay.
definitely.
And would you say that your love and passion for horror is what initially inspired you to start game development? I think I kind of gathered that from what you said.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
definitely. I mean, I wouldn't have done game development if it wasn't for that.
So, specifically talking about Nuclear Nightmare now, what has been your biggest obstacle when it comes to the development of the game?
That's a good question. I got to think about that one for a second. I guess it'd be that when I first started Nuclear Nightmare, I never programmed a multiplayer horror game before. I've only done single player horror, and single player is a lot easier to program than it is doing something that's multiplayer. But basically, the story on how it was created was I ended up getting laid off my job. It was that I was working at a startup company, and they ended up losing funding. So I had got laid off, and I had all this free time on my hands. And I had a guy that was working at that company with me, and he said that we should do a project together, work on a project together, specifically something that was multiplayer, somewhat inspired by Lethal Company. I mean, not entirely. Don't take that the wrong way, as in we're inspired by Lethal Company because
Yeah.
I mean not necessarily, but just in the sense that a multiplayer horror game is all.
Yeah.
Uh, so yeah, we started on that, and keep in mind I didn't at the time when I started it, I didn't know how to program multiplayer games. But he kind of spurred me on and said, "Hey, if you had any questions about how to do things properly, then to ask him." However, he didn't end up knowing really anything about multiplayer programming, and I just ended up doing it all myself. That's why you don't see him involved
Hmm.
today because he just didn't have the time to add to the project. So I ended up, it was pretty much all me. that ended up making it. So I made it from scratch, programming it from scratch, did everything from scratch. So in short, the biggest challenge has just been getting over some of those big multiplayer hurdles, right? Like I remember when we first came out, it ran. We did a bunch of testing, and it worked great on everybody else's Wi-Fi. And then when it first came out, like some providers had issues with it. So like Starlink had issues. Some other internet service providers had issues where people couldn't play. So at the beginning, I was getting all these mixed reviews, and everybody was like, "Oh, I can't even play this." So I had to go back in the code and figure out what was going on. Luckily, I figured it out and got that issue resolved on like the first day. But I could have gone a lot worse. So it's just been a lot of multiplayer nuances that
Okay.
have been the biggest hurdles.
I can definitely understand that. I mean, it's one thing to make a game where it's just coming from one PC, but then when you've got all these different kind of systems with different components and all that, I can definitely see where that would become really tough. Apart from the obvious one, John Carpenter's The Thing, has there been any other movies, horror or not, that have been an inspiration for you in the development of Nuclear Nightmare?
Oh, of course. I mean, Alien vs Predator is massive inspiration for it. I mean, the whole playable enemy mode really comes from the inspiration from the original Alien vs Predator game on the Xbox. I don't know if anybody remembers that. It's from like 2010,
Oh yeah.
I think, where you could play as Alien. That's kind of the whole inspiration for that mode. However, I will say we want to go in a direction that has more of transformations and being able to transform into different creatures and animals or whatever have you, than how it is currently, where it's currently like you're just one alien creature and you can attack other players. Definitely want to go into something that's a bit more inspired by the thing. Um, but yes, I mean that's one massive one. I mean, the Penumbra games were a massive inspiration. Those are my favorite games of all time. Actually, it was the Penumbra series, specifically Overture and Black Plague, were my biggest inspirations. Um, and, it's actually funny because I think a lot of people think we came into it trying to make some kind of the thing ripoff, but that wasn't actually the idea from the beginning. The idea from the beginning was just making something that was a co-op multiplayer game that was a lot more realistic per se, and actually had a horror theme underlining it, rather, because I think a lot of horror co-op horror games you see these days are all joking around most of the time. And don't get me wrong, Nuclear Nightmare has a lot of funny moments in it, but the core of the game doesn't have the same kind of tone, I would say, as a lot of other things out.
Yeah, it's like the humorous part comes from the community and their interactions, but the game itself isn't striving to give you a comedic response. It's still trying to make that tension, those kind of scary moments.
Definitely, yeah.
Okay. When did you officially start working on Nuclear Nightmare?
I was like I said, it was when I got laid off the startup company I was working for, which was at the beginning of this year. I think it was end of end of February. Yeah, yeah, it would have been end of February, 2024.
Okay, so the 1 year development anniversary will be coming up kind of soon. Then that's cool. And again,
Yeah,
very very
so
impressive.
and that's why I say, because for the people that don't know, Nuclear Nightmare is so much of a hit that I'm now able to do this full time, and really take it to the next level. So if you think what I've done currently is good, then just wait to see what I'm gonna do now
Um,
that this is full time.
yeah, I'm definitely excited to see what's going to come to the game soon. Speaking of, actually, great transition. What has been your favorite update thus far for Nuclear Nightmare?
Well, that's a hard one because a lot of the ones aren't very fun. They're all stability. And actually, my passion is adding all the new content and adding new features. That's what I have the most fun with. I hate stability. I hate fixing bugs. It sucks, but it's something that you have to do, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, Now, don't get me wrong. There are points where it's really fun because, for example, revamping the voice chat system and getting it in the state it is now I feel a lot better about that system versus the old one that was really janky. Um, but I mean, trying to think of one that was quite a big update. That I mean, I guess the only one that was quite a large update that we recently had that wasn't stability related was the ammo slash pickaxe update. That was a fun one to make for sure, but obviously there's not a lot to compare it with in terms of content.
That's fair. That's fair. I just speaking, as a player of the game, I definitely like, I love the pickaxe edition, the upgrading to 8 player co-op, and of course the ammo reloading system. As someone who primarily plays solo, has been a huge, huge benefit for me. Do you listen to any music while working on the game? And if so, do you have any go-to artists or songs?
Yeah, I do. I do. I listen to all the '80s music. That's what I listen to. I listen to that. I like that "Push It to the Limit" song. That's a good one. Um, Stuff like this. Sometimes I listen to soundtracks from some horror movies if I'm trying to get into the zone while I'm making something, make it scary. But yeah, I mean, my whole life runs off music. Everything I do runs off music. Um, I don't think I'd be able to program such a fun game if I just sat there and listened to the silence all around me and everything sounded like a library. I need music.
I can definitely relate to that. I'm the same as well. Going over to one of your different games now, though, Pyramus. In that game, there are some heavy ties to real world UFO and UAP lore. Nuclear Nightmare features a UAP Easter egg itself with the crashed UFO or UAP, whichever term you prefer. So, do you believe in the phenomena?
I do actually. Yeah, I do. I think there's a lot of ties to it existing. I think there's a lot of evidence out there that it exists. Have I ever personally encountered it? No, but I think the stories are beyond compelling. So I always try to tie that to all my work because what's the easiest way to make a really in depth lore is to tie it to a real world event. And so given that I'm such a UFO buff, I thought it was easy to tie that in with a lot of the lore. And there are connections there between Pyramus and some of those events. And Nuclear Nightmare has some ties to Pyramus in some fashion. So
So, last question on that kind of topic. So, do you believe, this is just purely opinion, right? Do you believe that humanity has ever recovered a crashed UAP?
I do actually. If you go watch the David Grush meeting with Congress, I mean he talks about it. He says that allegedly they had uh, been given one by I think it was France or some country like that. But I don't know. I mean, I all I know is what I hear. So, can I say that definitively? Probably not. But is it compelling? Yeah.
I 100% agree. I also watched that same testimony from Grush and David Fravor, the other gentleman, I forget his name, but he was a fighter pilot. And yeah, I think the story was like after World War II, Italy gave the U.S. A recovered UAP or something like that. But okay, back onto the game stuff. That was just me asking you those questions because I'm also a huge UFO buff myself. What is your biggest hope for the future of Nuclear Nightmare?
Yeah. I mean, my biggest hope is that we can keep the same gameplay loop intact, right? But we increase replayability. We increase the random generation to a point where it's the go-to game, right? So we're no longer just okay. If you want to play this one game with the Arctic map and these set classified objectives that you do every time, I don't want it to be known for that. That's all it's known for, and all people go to for, is that okay? It's just a gimmicky, the thing inspired game. I want it to expand to a level where we have so much going on that it's the go-to multiplayer horror game. I mean, to the point where, okay, we have an underwater map, and there's specific functionality you do for that area. There's the forest map, there's the underground mine map, right? We just have maps for all these different locations, and they keep the same feel. It's still this open world feel with vehicles, and then they all have their own set functionality. So, for example, maybe underwater, your vehicles are the submarines, or just on the forest map, we're actually going to do boats, or etc. Right? Because I think there's a lot we've done with Nuclear Nightmare in its current state that a lot of horror games aren't doing. I mean, I don't think you. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I haven't seen any multiplayer co-op horror game that in the same kind of space that we are, that has vehicles and is more open world based and all of that. So I think the way it could go is just limitless. But it's a matter of, can we get there in enough time to keep players still interested, which I believe we can. But
I
I know.
have faith in you guys for sure. Just given off of what you've accomplished so far, I think that the future is going to look very bright.
Yeah,
Uh,
I mean, and to add to that point, like I said, this game was programmed by myself uh, for 8 months. I mean, how long is that? This has to be like 8 months part time, right? Because I'm doing it outside of my full time day job as a programmer. So if I've done that in that time, and then on top of that, now we will have budget for legitimate funding where I can afford to hire some extra help, or get some specific models made. So I think the future is very bright for the game, very bright, and I'm very passionate about it too. And I think that's what makes me different from every other person trying to make a game out there.
so, what has been your biggest takeaway from your years spent developing games?
Well, my biggest takeaway. I mean, I can give you a lot of. In what sense do you mean? Do you mean in
So,
the sense of programming wise, or conceptually, or
let's say for now, programming wise.
well, programming wise, you have to have the right systems in place, right? You have to build it correctly from the ground up in order to make it last, to make it scalable. So there's a lot of importance on building reusable systems, for sure. Uh, and that's something I wish I did a lot more when I was starting out. Conceptually, I think I realized that in order to make a good game, right, you can have $1 million in marketing, you can have the world's biggest budget ever, right? But if the game's idea is horrible from the start, then you'll never get anywhere.
Hmm.
If you make a good idea from the beginning, uh, then you got a higher outcome of achieving what you want to achieve.
So these are just going to be some like last final questions. They're going to be a little kind of quick fire, a little more fun. So first one, if you could add anything to the game, regardless of the cost, the licensing, the development, literally any other reason, what would that be?
I would have it so that basically Nuclear Nightmare is one massive open world. So for example, if you want to go to Antarctica, so everybody, and this is actually an idea we were talking about in seriousness, but I think we're still on this. I mean, it's still kind of on the table. It just seems like a really big implementation that it might just be out of the realm of possibility for now. So I'm not sure we're going to do it. But we were talking about having a mode where, or not a mode, but this is just how the game would be. You would load up and you would start in your submarine or your boat or whatever it was. And from there, you could go and customize your boat and you do all these things to turn it into, with your points, you could turn it into some crazy yacht or whatever you want, right? But that boat is essentially your vehicle to travel the world. So you could go down, like if you wanted to go and collect, and obviously you need to do classifieds in order to get the points. So let's say, for example, you want to go and play the map that's currently released. Well, you would just drive the boat or the submarine or whatever it is. You would drive that down to Antarctica and then find that spot to go and do that mission. And then there'd be missions like these all over the world where you could go to and actually complete things. But essentially, you limit you. There's no menu at that point, right? You just load in the game and you're in.
Yeah.
Uh, but obviously, that's a pretty massive scale to do things that I don't think a little team can do. Let alone me programming the whole thing from scratch by myself. Uh, so I'm not sure if that will actually come about. I mean, we might be able to do it in a sense that if we make Antarctica, the Antarctica map, it's just its own little island, and you can only travel between these remote islands. But obviously, doing the whole continent of Antarctica is probably unrealistic.
What is your personal favorite monster in the game?
Um, I definitely think the two headed monster right now because he used to be my least favorite because he used to just kind of walk. He was more zombie like.
Yeah, kind of like Michael
Um,
Myers just walking towards you with a knife.
right, right, and he just felt out of place, and I was somewhat bothered by it at the time when I released the game. But we had to get it out. Obviously, I set a timeline for myself because I said, okay, I want to release by Halloween. So, and the thing with being a designer on top of being a programmer is you can just keep adding things forever. It'll never stop unless you put a limit on yourself. So, that's what I did by saying, okay, Halloween is the limit for when I can't keep adding things and I got to release it. Um, so the first stab at it was definitely my least favorite. Because we just wanted to do more with him. We wanted him to be a bit more advanced. But then with the recent updates, that's what he's become. Now he walks he crawls sideways up. As in his face and stomach is facing, the sky.
Yeah.
And he's just a really creepy looking enemy now. This his whole movement and everything. Like if you see him crawl up the stairs, he actually walks like that too. Like the IKs will bend his back to be level with whatever surface he's on, and yeah, he's just and now he's actually the hardest enemy too to go against because he
Oh
went back
yeah.
hard
He's very
and he's
hard to hit,
fast now.
very fast, and he's very savage with his attacks. I don't know if you saw, but on the Nuclear Nightmare Discord, which for anyone listening, if you are not on the Nuclear Nightmare Discord, there will be a link in the description of this video. Totally recommend you join. There's a lot of cool opportunities to chat with devs, suggest updates for the game, bug fixing, stuff like that, and just take part in the community. I recently did a poll in the polls channel, and I asked what everyone's favorite monster was, and I am one of the few votes for uh, what I've been calling and what I've been told is kind of called the Psycho, just to give him a name. And I was really surprised to see not as many people voting for him because personally, he went from, yeah, kind of like a goofy guy just walking at you with a knife, and now he's just utterly terrifying. Probably is the monster that kills me the most, and I'm not complaining because at the end of the day, I'm playing Nuclear Nightmare for some good horror moments, and he definitely delivers on those.
I think a lot of people probably don't know what the names are currently, so it might be in part to why you don't see the polls reflecting that.
Yeah, I made a video recently on the monsters to try and finally give the community something to unify behind and call the monsters. What is your favorite weapon in the game currently?
Uh Probably the shotgun. The shotgun is just so satisfying to kill enemies with because they just explode into a million bits.
Yes, they do. It is definitely satisfying. Are you a day person or a night person?
Well, I mean, the thing is with Nuclear Nightmare, I don't get any sleep, so I'm both.
Sort of an all day person, not by your choice, but by your drive.
Yeah, by my drive, definitely.
All right, and one last final question before we let you go here. If you could tell the fans and the players one thing with this little opportunity you've got here, what would you want to tell them?
I think just I appreciate, I love and appreciate everybody's support. I mean, it's been incredible. I mean, this has been my dream for a very long time in my life. So to see it actually happen and come to fruition is just incredible to me. I mean, it still feels like I'm dreaming the amount of popularity it's carrying. is just incredible. And I just hope that you know certain people that might have played the game or see its potential in its current state aren't don't give up on us now if they feel like it's doesn't have enough content or there's certain bugs for certain things or whatever, because at the end of the day, this is why we released an early access, so as to give people a early look into what we were doing. And I didn't expect it to get this big, uh, this fast. And so although there's been an overwhelming amount of support, I do see some people that, uh, are bothered by its current technical state, or that there's not enough content, or there's not enough things. Um, and I'm working my hardest to try and get things out to the people as soon as possible. So yeah, just sit back, watch the ride, and yeah, and you'll see we got a lot planned for this thing, and what it is now is going to be a shell of what it's going to become.
The best is definitely yet to come. Benjamin, thank you again so much for joining me with this little interview. I really appreciate your time, all the time you've been putting into the game. I know you mentioned that this game is a dream come true to you, and the opinions I've gotten from a lot of fans, and frankly, my own opinion, is that a game like this is a dream come true for us too, because, huge fans of horror, specifically, like, obviously, John Carpenter with The Thing. We've all been wanting a game like this, so thank you for being the one to step up and knocking it the hell out of the park. Seriously. Appreciate your time. Appreciate you coming by. Take care. Have a good one, man.
Yeah, thank you, Alex. Thank you for being such an active community member. I mean, you've even made my job a lot easier, as I don't have to interact with as many people, and I can focus more time on development, because I have you're out there making tutorials and interested in the game and telling everybody about it. So that you've been a great help, especially to me, and on top of everything else, you were one of the first players to really get into the game. So, I hope one day, when we've added everything, the full release comes out, and hopefully then we're even more popular than we are now. And I can say, hey, look, my guy Alex is still here with us, still, still doing tutorials and whatnot, and you've been here since the beginning. That'd be awesome.
Yeah, I'll be there. I'll be there, man.
Definitely.
Thank you for listening to this little interview. I may or may not do some more with some of the other dev members. We'll see. But again, thank you very much for stopping by. As always, have a great day and take care. And if you are finding yourselves on Low Island playing Nuclear Nightmare, stay safe and make it till the morning if you can. Have a good one.